spoke through angels too, okay?
Yes.
But he doesn't say that. He spoke through the prophets many times in various ways. But now the primary way he's speaking is not through the prophets, but through the Son. That's all it's saying. And then he explicitly identifies the Son as pre-existent from the beginning, God.
Gentlemen, I'm getting the wind down from my floor manager. That is the conclusion of part 2. I want to thank you all for a very spirited debate, and I think we should give another hand. We're now going to conclude with part 3 of our debate. This is going to feature a 20-minute period of questions from our studio audience, which may be directed to either side or to a specific panelist. So the individual or team addressed will be allowed 2 minutes to answer, and it may be followed by comments from the opposing side of up to 90 seconds. So let's begin part 3, and we'll ask our first member of the studio audience with their question to tell us who you are and ask your question into the microphone and tell us who it's for.
My name is Jeff Durbin from Phoenix, and this question was really for Dr. White, but really to try to get a further explanation from Dr. Buzzard on the response. Dr. White, the question really is can you exegete John chapter 1, A, B, and C from the Greek text and see if we can get some sort of a response from Dr. Buzzard more than just lowering the capital letter to a lowercase?
Well, you know, we looked at that, but let me just briefly reiterate the assertion that I made, and that is there are 2 verbs used in the prologue of John. You have the imperfect form of eimi that is used when it's speaking of the Logos, which does not refer to a point of origin in time or a point of creation. But as far back as you want to push the beginning, the Logos is already in existence. And that's what you have in John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word. The Word has eternally existed. The Word was proston theon, face to face with God, and the Word was as to his nature, theos, God. All things were made through him. Now, the term autou that is used there can be masculine or a neuter, but all modern translations that I know of say him, because it is the one who becomes flesh in John 1:14. It is, I think, an eisegetical insertion to say, well, no, this is just sort of a plan or it's some type of a concept that's eternally existed with God, because this same one is described in John 1:18 as the monogenes theos, the unique God. This is the one who has exegeted the Father. You have to see that 1:18 and 1:1 are bookends. And so if you don't allow 1:18 to inform who the Logos is here, you have a plan up here, but now you have the monogenes theos here. That creates an imbalance, and I think a contradiction in the text.
Okay, Dr. Buzzard, 90 seconds, if you could respond.
Yeah, I just differ, obviously. I think Logos is not a person until it becomes a person in the 14th verse. And I will make this grammatical point that will be of interest to you, that if you look at the light, which is a neuter word in Greek, you will find it's neuter, naturally enough. Avto, the light. When you get to verse 10, remarkably, it's become avton, a person. Because Jesus has now come on the scene after John the Baptist shows up. That's where the Logos, it, the wisdom and plan of God, has gone from a neuter, a thing, to avton. The light is now a person walking. And that's where, as James White says so well, that's where the monogenes son comes in. Jesus is what wisdom and word became.
Thank you very much. Our next question. Tell us who you are and who your question's focused on.
Yes, I'm Sam from Chicago. My question is directed to the Unitarians, particularly Joe, I think is his name. Is that his name, Joe? Not Sir Anthony Buzzard, the other gentleman. It has to do with the concept of shaliach. He kept saying that Jesus could receive the worship that belongs only to God because he's God's agent. Well, my question is this. The apostles were also the agents of God and Christ, respectively. And in the book of Revelation, if you read chapter 22, verse 6 and 16, Revelation chapter 22, verse 6 and 16, it says that the angel who spoke to John was the agent of God and Christ, respectively. With that said, could the apostles go around saying, I am Jesus Christ, or God the Father, therefore worship me, because they were the agents of God and Christ? And if so, then why did the angel refuse to receive worship, seeing that he was the shaliach, the agent of God and Christ, respectively? So that's my question directed to the Unitarians.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to read two definitions of, according to Jewish law, what a shliach is, which is, the word means an agent, and it's called the law of agency. First is from the Jewish Encyclopedia. The law of agency deals with the status of a person known as the agent acting by direction of another, the principal, and thereby legally binding the principal in this connection with the third person. The person who binds a principal in this manner is his agent, known in Jewish law as a shiluach or shliach, one that is sent. The relation of the former to the latter is known as agency. Now, the bottom line on this is from the Babylonian Talmud, Kedoshim 41b, but it's actually quoted in the Mishnah, which is much earlier, is a man's agent is like himself. Wait, got another paper. This is from the Encyclopedia of the Jewish Religion. The main point of the Jewish law of agency is expressed in the dictum, a person's agent is regarded as the person himself. Now, as you drop on down in this, you're told that the person sending the agent will specify what he's allowed to do, what his power is. In the case of Yeshua, all power was given to him from above. He was acting as God on earth. But I don't believe that he was God on earth. The agents, the apostles, when they were sent out, they were limited in what they could do. Just like Moses in the first coming. He was a sent one. He was the shliach. But he was limited. He couldn't call down plagues at will. It came as it was directed by the Father. So that would be the difference between the two.
Thank you. And a rebuttal, 90 seconds.
Yeah. All of the issues that were raised haven't been addressed to this moment. For example, John 12 saying that the glorious Lord that Isaiah saw was Jesus in Isaiah, the 6th chapter. So all of these arguments about Shaliach and the sent one are completely irrelevant. The sent one was not from the beginning. If he was from the beginning, which is explicit in John 1 and explicit in Hebrews chapter 1 and explicit in 1 John 1:1 and other texts, the agent was not an uncreated eternal being and the one that created the whole universe. And when he came into the world, even the demons said, "You are the Holy One of God." They recognized who he was. They didn't just say, you've been sent by the big man, and we're scared of the big man. They said, no, we know who you are, and we are in big trouble. So let's just go with the explicit texts that say who he is and not be dissuaded or pushed to the side. Also, it's very interesting that early rabbinic literature makes reference to the followers of Jesus worshiping two powers. Where did they get that idea from? It's because they understood the worship of him as divine, but they didn't understand God's triunity because they rejected the revelation of the Messiah.
Thank you. Next question from our studio audience. Your name, who your question is directed to, and your question.
My name is Sandy Zimmerman.